We need the meeting before the meeting.
Yeah, you never know what's going to show up in the post credits. Yeah,
that's right. You never know what's going to happen in the post show.
I was like, I listened to the beginning and then I skipped to the end. Like I live the middle. Yeah.
My question is, do you use the chapter bookmarks, which I love?
I do now.
I love the chapter bookmarks, but I'm like, this is truly like, what is it? I don't know what it is in podcasting when like there's like gold plating, and then there's just when you add something literally for yourself in a podcast audio file. Like, pretty sure I'm the only one using this, and I love it. So I love it. There. Marco Arment would be he would be so proud of me that I'm using chapter bookmarks.
I use it to listen to the after show every time.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I want to know.
All right.
Yeah, I skip to the end and the after show, and
it's
find out all the things that I didn't know were being recorded.
That's true. I don't know. I feel like if you've been offended, none of you neither.
Oh no.
You've never emailed me and been like, I can't believe you revealed that thing that was so secret. So, but let me know. Let me know if I ever mess up.
No, I mean, if I always, as you know, I always know if I've said something offensive, and either I go edit the episode or I think true. Actually I think I just do the editing.
That is actually funny. Like when I get up in the morning and there's a Slack from Cote when I get up in the morning when it says something like, "Hey, I went in and I did such and such to the episode." I know it's like, okay, well, there was something there. So.
That's one of the benefits of having a paranoid mind that won't shut the fuck up when you want to sleep. Is it just like goes and reviews everything?
It's perfect.
I've got the other kind of mind that's spent the hours of midnight to 2 a.m. fighting with CSS.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say sleeping.
No. Only to give up, make the PR, and the first reviewer identifies the thing that you fought with.
Oh yeah.
They're like, do you think you can fix that? Like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. At the whole, I think Cote, you must turn off the chat overlay with you and Barton.
Uh-oh.
We're good. Back now.
Well, we weren't broadcasting; we were just recording.
Of course. You should have broadcasted with Barton. He's always got something good to say. I actually look forward to hearing that episode. Sounds like it's gonna be a good one.
It was fun. I think we got to as I like to do, I like to try to extract some general repeatable model. So we got to a good discussion of how to do decades long innovation inside of a large company, which I think was fun. I think we came up with something. I told him, I don't know if y'all know this because you may not have ever talked to Barton before, but he has a Harvard MBA.
Did that come up? Did you make that joke many times?
Of course. So I was like, you need to, you got to call up your Harvard friends at the Harvard Business School and write this case up, and we'll see what happens. He actually, no shit. We did spend an hour getting his lighting perfected. I literally mean that, and wow. And just imagine trying to get lighting perfected with not the proper kinds of lights. But I think we accomplished something. And then, of course, you come smack up against the webcam problem, where finally we got the lights. And I had to tell him, Barton, your problem now is that your camera sucks. So there's really nothing we can do about that. But anyways, he literally, he was clearing off his bed and he was like, oh, look, here's my Harvard alumni magazine. Just like, yep, of course, it's right there.
Well, little nighttime reading.
Yeah, just
do you get one of those from where did you go to school?
That's right. I'm not sure they still make one. No, they probably do. Whatever.
All right, for the streamers and for Cote and for you and Matt, how many hours total, cumulative, have people watched the YouTube videos?
80.
Okay, 80.
Oh no, like person times feeds times hours. 10,000.
Yeah, 10. Well, wow.
Wow.
What do you think we are? What do you think we are, Mr. Beast?
Oh no. Think about it.
I'm going to give away $2 million worth of Xbox Pros, but first we're going to stack them in an empty pool.
Let's say we have 100 episodes that got 100 watches. That's 10,000.
Okay, well, Matt, you're very optimistic. It's 525 hours. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I actually thought it was.
I don't know. Actually, I have no idea how many are in the
which I
feed,
thought
so.
was really good. But now, since you said 10,000 and you've compared us to Mr. Beast, and yeah, it's it's not that. So
like and subscribe, punch the button. What do you do?
Yeah.
Hit the monkey.
Well, how
you
about
know,
this?
Mr. Beast, you know what his company is valued at, right? You've heard this, I assume.
It's like second only to Apple. Yeah.
You're talking about like it's valued at over $1 billion, right? He took like I think $100 million, $200 million in
Well, maybe we can get him to
investment.
sponsor the show.
Yeah, he's got to
I'm not.
expand.
He can do a paid interview.
You got to
Probably
be
not.
like, have you ever thought what would happen if you put 5 million ping pong balls in a data center? We could do that for you.
He also allegedly, I think I
I
was
hear
watching.
Rackspace is giving up on fanatical support, so they'll let him do it.
I was watching, I think an interview with him or something, and he basically says that he spends, I think, $10,000 per thumbnail, like the YouTube thumbnail for the videos. Anyway, there's like some kind of optimization. Like if you have really good thumbnails, they get more, such and such. And so like he spends what I would think is incredible amount of money. But then you start to think it's like, no, it's like if this video is going to be viewed 40 million times or whatever, and it, has any type of like infinitesimal, type of change to it, it's like, yeah, you would spend $10,000. So there you go.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't that same thing that I read that he had a team of 6 people who work on thumbnails.
Yeah. So I think we said the whole
So
thing.
that
Yeah.
makes
So
sense.
anyway. All right. Well, we're not there yet. So we have life goals.
Well, just aim for the stars, guys. Aim for the stars.
Well, we have a team of 1 person, so we should be worth 1/6 as much,
I don't
right?
think I don't think anyone's in charge of thumbnails.
Well, how about cover art?
Maybe
Like
we need an
chapter
intern.
art.
It's too funny. Matt, they just sent us an email. Hi, Brandon and Matt. I'm hoping to interest you in an interview with Raymond Baker, author of the upcoming book Invisible Trillions. So anyway, I always think it's strange. So, oftentimes, Matt, it's addressed. It'll be Brandon and Matt. Like, so I don't know
Well,
why the
that's-
person.
We got in that.
Like,
the
why,
CNCF
like-
sold us out.
I don't know. It's like something. It's not. It's rarely
maybe the meter
Kote.
sponsorship.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
weird how it doesn't. I don't know, Kote. It's weird how it doesn't. The cold emails don't often, at least the ones that I get to questions that software defined, they don't typically reference you. And then, of course, if they reference you as Michael. And then I'm like, then it takes me a minute. I'm like, who are they talking about? Oh, that's right, Kote.
And it'd be
That
like,
guy.
we think that Michael's interview style would be fantastic. That'd be great.
Well, I like the ones that they've kind of perfected some kind of auto, maybe it's a chat GPT thing where they go get the title of the last episode. They'd be like, love last episode. And then they give you the title. It was so good. You know what I mean? It was just like, clearly
Yes.
it was just a cold email. Clearly they haven't listened to any of it, which I mean, again, not required.
That
I
would be
don't
great.
like, I always just want to tell people I'm going to read it regardless. It's like, but you don't even have to, that's fine. I don't expect you to listen to all episodes, but it's like, but it's clear when they write the email, they haven't really listened. So I'm like, because that's what someone needs to do. When you get a listener from an email from an actual listener, it's like, it's immediately obvious, right? So you're like, oh, interesting.
Yes.
So there you go. For all the cold email people out there, go in, listen to like 2 minutes of the middle and see if you can come up with some comment. And then it'd be like, yeah, there you go. And use the chapter markers, right? Anyone that emailed in, Brandon, loved the use of chapter markers. It was incredible. Then I will immediately, again, I'm going to love it. I'm going to be like, that's the key. Anyone that comes in is like, I love the use of chapter markers. I loved how the third one was perfect. It had silence and it was a perfect pickup and it was just right into the speaker. Oh, I'd be like, that's the way to get on this
they're
show.
like, I loved in the YouTube recording how this, so and so said this, and then Kote must have edited that out.
Yeah, that's another one too. It's like, I love the way that you pick out random things for the post show. It was incredible, right?
Yeah.
When Matt said that thing about the Australian animal, no one saw that coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You know how there's like Guitar Magazine? There now needs to be like Podcast Editor Magazine. And, on the cover, it'll be like, Brandon's editing rig.
You know what?
And,
they're going to be a media sponsor of Legacy Conf.
Oh, yeah. Podcast Editing Magazine.
We'll create our own alternate universe of like magazines and trade shows and other podcasts that don't exist yet, and we'll just make it the software-defined empire.
Yeah, and there'll be articles like best 10 microphones to stick in your drawer and never use.
Oh, no, that's feeling a little too real. that's getting a little too close to home right there.
We'll let ChatGPT write the whole thing.
Once you've a place to invest thousands of dollars that don't really return on anything, that would be
Yep.
all right, well, we can start whenever. Okay, so I think the things I put in here, I feel like everyone has an opinion on the Pentagon cloud. I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Read a bunch of hot takes about what I was referring to. It's like day 2 at Amazon. Like I think Mr. Stephen O'Grady, your good friend Cote, right? He had a take.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh really?
Take about
that's great. I haven't read any of that, so that'll be good.
Oh, that one's good.
And then Amazon's heroic phase. That was another take. I don't know, it was just a bunch. It was like everyone had a similar take. So I think we'll have a take. And then
you took my recommendation. Now I have to think of something.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
what's your
different.
recommendation?
You want to do that one?
No. I had 2 earlier, but I didn't write it down, so I've got something. I'll figure it out. Don't worry. Okay, yeah, that's good. Cool.
Okay. All right, man.
I have a bit of a cold here, so I'll try to stay on the mute button as needed. Well, what was I going to start talking about? All right. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just like flipping through that Rackspace thing. That's not really news as much as like it's not news.
Sadness.
Enough sadness already.
All right. Well, we've got a big trip coming up because we're going back to Texas for a long spell, as they might say, which I'm very much so looking forward to it. And my daughter, as my dad used to say, my middle daughter, which I've heard myself saying that every now and then. I'm like, God damn it, you just become your parents. What the fuck is happening? But I guess
that's the worst. Like I hear myself commenting on something. I was like, I sound like my dad.
And now,
that seems just kind of factual, though. Like you do have to, like when you're identifying the child, like you I mean, orders.
Oh yeah, the
normal,
middle
right?
daughter.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and and now also the thing is like whenever I there's a certain type of laugh that I have, and I'm like, that sounds just like my dad. So
well,
which is fine. I don't want people to get the impression that I didn't like my dad. Rest in peace and all that business. It's just like it creeps up on you, sort of, and then it sits on your chest like a cold. I sound like I don't like him now, but that's not the case. Anyhow, so we're going on a long trip, and my middle daughter Alejandra has been telling me that she wants some headphones, and it's not just any headphones. She wants some wireless headphones because I don't remember if she has. I don't think her phone is advanced enough because she has an old phone. I think there's a hole in it, but whatever. She wanted some headphones. And I was telling Kim this, my wife, and she reminded me that we have a whole drawer full of AirPods, like, that for whatever reason we don't use. And so I was thinking, we have all these headphones. Why don't I just give one of these to Alejandra? But now my concern is this. Alejandra's pretty good about this. But these kids often don't know where their gloves are when it's freezing outside. And I feel like, and I don't know, certain other members of the household don't always know where their AirPods are either. So what I want to know is if I let Alejandra use these AirPods, is it going to be like the most fun 4 hours of her life that she's ever had? Or is she actually going to be able to, not lose them for like over a week? What's the, what should I be expecting here?
Don't they have the Find My Phone? I think it works for AirPods.
Yeah. So there's that.
I mean, because I too have a middle daughter who likes to lose things. And yeah, we've used that many times.
I like where you're going here, though. Maybe what I need to do is attach an AirTag to each.
I was going to say, this is, I just got AirTags because we're actually going to take a trip here next week myself. And I'm not as far, but I got the 4-pack. Actually, it was an early Christmas gift, right? And sure enough, I told my wife, it's like, one of the things we're going to quote give my son is a AirPods case that has, basically a holder for the AirTag.
Yes.
So it just plugs in there. So I would say if and when you give them to her, like one, yes, they will definitely be lost. I can confirm that 100%. So you either have to make sure you've given her like old ones, maybe ones that you don't care about, or just, it quote unquote, expect it to be like a little life lesson, or you can use the Find My if they are charged. But like, I don't think it doesn't work that well, right? Especially when the kid is like, you're like, like it works well if you've maybe lost them, you're just trying to figure out, was it at home or in the car, right?
Yes,
when a kid loses them, they're like, I don't know, it could have been Scheipel, Austin, or grandma's house, and you're like,
that's right.
I can't quickly check those areas, right? So I think you need to upgrade to the AirTag on that one. Then I do think for that age, we had my son, he had the some Beats, but there's like the full, the regular the Beats, I guess they're Bluetooth, and that actually was good because it's just, they're just literally physical, right? And they like much bigger, much harder to lose, and also you can do a quick, like, do you have them? Like, you can see them in the backpack.
Right. You can get a visual, get eyes on it.
Yeah, it's just a lot harder. Yeah, eyes on it, right? And also too, I don't know. It's although I think as soon as kids try AirPods of any kind, they quickly move over just like adults.
Just like any human.
They're like, I don't want this giant contraption on my head anymore. So that's, you have that.
Well, I have been using AirTags for a while, and they are effective for the where's the child tracking, right? And also and also the where the child's keys tracking. Like they definitely work for that. And I think what I'll experiment with this. And I think what I need to tell her is that there's two layers here. Is like, okay, for the headphones, this is going to be dad advice, and by dad advice it means that like it's no one's.
It's good advice for everyone.
Yes, and that's
going to be ignored by everyone equally.
That right there, that right there is dad advice. Dad advice is not just for children; it's for everyone. And so I think what I'll say is there are two places these earphones go. They either go in your ears or in the case. So that's part one, and then the second part is like, and as far as the case, always put it in your pockets, right? Like that's the part of the reason that I kind of only wear jeans or pants that have 5 pockets is because I know I've said this before, you've got that little coin pocket which AirPods fit perfectly into, right? And so just like that's where they live. They're always there unless they're charging. Like as more dad advice, right? Like if you put something the same place every time, you always know where it is. And I'll just see how that pans out.
And to finish that thought off, the dad advice I always get is, "Did you find it? Oh, well, it's going to be the last place you looked."
Yeah.
What about this, Cote? I'm because I hear you on the dad advice. I think some meta dad advice is: 1, that advice is going to be ignored. 2, it's like you have to accept as soon as you give these to your daughter, they will be lost. So you just have to decide,
That's good.
Am I okay with that? And if I'm not, don't give it to her. And then 3, going the extra step would be like, if either consider the AirTag case or lanyard, give her a thing and let her put it on a lanyard, especially if you're going to be,
that's good.
If it's going to be an airport thing, mostly like, put it on your, put it around your neck. That way it's right in front of you. You have them. And then that's, because a lanyard, if you really want, I actually find this future, like for kids, like if you really want them not to lose it, like the lanyard seems to work the best.
I liked it. Now that is, I'm writing that down, lanyard, because so the lanyard, they have bike keys, and what you want in a bike key situation. Now we've covered this before, that there is a ring lock on Dutch bikes. Whatever, you can go look up in the back catalog what's going on there, but you need a key, and the kids are actually very good at keeping track of their bike key on a lanyard. Now Alejandra has a combination lock now, so she doesn't need that. And also you put the AirTag on the lanyard. So the lanyard is like your child management platform, right?
Absolutely,
like it's
absolutely. And in fairness to the children, I think the problem they have, much like women's clothes, is like the pockets are not usually as good, right? And it's like that's the issue, right? And they don't want to so I think
we need to. I hadn't even considered that there are AirPod cases.
Yes. I got one. I'll get it for you. Yeah.
But you put that on the lanyard. You put a house key on the lanyard. You put an AirTag on the lanyard, And wow, that's a lot of lanyarding.
It's
But
the platform. That's what it's here for.
It's a platform.
Yeah,
Absolutely, it's a platform. And then, but again, you have to assume eventually they're going to lose that. But it's like, well, you've done your best at that point. You know, what else
Yeah.
could you have done, right? You know, you went full redundancy. Sometimes acts of nature happen. You just have to accept the outage.
Yeah, it's kind of like how I've come after all these years to think about their lunch, right? Like I make the kids lunches, you know, when I'm around, and they'll come home, and every now and then, you know, you open up the lunch and you empty it, and like they haven't eaten anything, let alone the centerpiece that I'll make for the lunch, right? Like I got some advice recently from some source, and it was just like, you know, you got to make their lunch, and then your job is done. Like whatever happens to the lunch afterwards, don't think about it. It's not your responsibility. Don't get involved in it. You make it, and if they don't eat any of it and you throw it away, you did your duty, and you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, would you rather they told you they just threw it away at school? You don't. You just just don't worry about it. Let it go.
I like that. Although, you know what's best to hear about a kid's lunch when they come home and they're like, one of my friends really liked this part of my lunch today. They were very excited about the
Traded your
couscous
lunch
that you put in
for
there.
Funyuns.
Yeah, because that's what you wanted. Like, you know, I don't know. And Angelica was excited about the couscous that I had in here, and then you want to be like, yeah, it is pretty fucking exciting, isn't it? Maybe you should start eating it instead of just like, you know, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with no crust or whatever the fuck, right? Like, you know, you expand your. I don't talk to my kids like that. just to be clear. But you know, it's I would love for them to expand.
The internal monologue, though, it's there.
Yeah, that's the meta dad in my head trying to dad me.
That guy's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I guess so. That guy go fuck himself. But you know, but where's he gonna go? He's in my head. He can't bust out of it. We can't do much about that. Well, so it looks like finally, I know we have been a close cover of. I don't even know if this is related, but you know, the U.S. Pentagon had this Jedi contract, which just like that must have been a delightful.
Are there any other Pentagons?
Well, I guess there's like Satan's Pentagon. That must be around. But you know, I guess that's a pentagram. But a pentagram would fit in a pentagon.
You have
right?
a pentagon with a pentagram on the roof.
This is something to consider. Now, isn't there one pentagram that's actually like good? It's an upside down pentagram that you put the horns on top. That's like the Lord of Darkness's symbol or something.
This
You know, it'll probably
episode
come as no
Satan.
surprise. It probably become as no surprise that, you know, when I was like a what they call a tween nowadays, I spent a lot of time in Half Price Books looking through the occult book section.
Oh yeah, back in the old satanic panic days, you were like,
Yeah, you know, just
how can I get in on this action?
just always hoping for like, you know, a rare Crowley edition or something like that.
Yeah.
And I once found a paperback edition of the supposed Necronomicon in a, you know, one of those drugstore carousel like paperback formats. Which
Because
is
that's
good.
where it's gonna be.
Well, you know, just that paperback. Like that's not a trade paperback. It's whatever that is, a pocket paperback, I think. Anyhow, it looks like there's finally been a selection out of the vendors, and they have chosen all of them. I think is who the contract has been awarded to.
So they didn't actually make a choice.
Well, they got, so I guess just to recap the news. So I think the original contract went to, was it Microsoft, right? And then
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
think after allegedly it was going to go to AWS, then the Trump
Right.
administration stepped in. Then it went to Microsoft. Then a whole lot of lawsuits happened, like many,
Well, Oracle
right?
complained. Yeah,
Well, I think
And
somehow
Oracle
everybody
complained
complained.
and like sponsored the Trump tech launch or something like that.
Yeah, so
And,
there was
you
a
know,
lot
they
of
got in good
complaining.
as a sponsor of the.
So they said
of
that they
the
would go
administration.
back, they would break the contract into smaller amounts, which I think is still huge at 9 billion, but I think it is significantly less. And so the news is Google, Oracle, Amazon, and Microsoft collectively awarded the $9 billion Pentagon Cloud deal or deals. So this is clearly, I think this is this is like the most, the largest digital transformations / CIO, at least one that I know of, right? And I think this is just a good example of like, people always say it's about culture and you've got to do the right thing and things like that. And it does seem like collectively, no one involved in this can possibly be happy. Like the vendors, if they're not going to get anything, I guess they want something, but no vendor wants to work with 3 of their competitors, right? Because think of all the integrations. And then think about if you're on the other end, if you're the CIO, or more importantly, the IT groups inheriting this. It's like, what a nightmare, right? I mean, I know there's multi-cloud. I know people want to use multiple clouds. Like, I get that, but I'm like, staring this in the face, like just learning all of these together, right, would be almost impossible, I think, to use them proficiently.
Luckily, the government pays top dollar and they'll get nothing but the best candidates.
True. No, but it just seems like one of these things where like everybody can see. And I think this is good. I don't know. It does seem like on a smaller scale, you encounter this all the time. Like from the outside and even from the inside, I think everyone can see this is going the wrong direction, but no one can fix it, which is like an interesting, I think, it's kind of like, I know, Coach, you talk a lot about digital transformation in your talks and stuff, but there is this moment where it's like, no, I don't know. To me, there is a moment. Maybe I'm being more defeatist here, where it's like, no, we couldn't defeat the bureaucracy, right? It just couldn't happen, right? You're just going to have to look at this and say, like, I was thinking to myself, what would I do if I was, involved in this? I think I would say something like, well, maybe we can at least kind of like for different, groups or different applications, or like come up with some way to segment it and be like, well, we're going to run all of X in Oracle, and we're going to run all of this in Microsoft. So you almost create like little islands within the organization. Be like, that way you would at least have some way to manage it and say like because think about how big the teams are, and depending on, be like, okay, for this group, all of you are going to use this, and maybe you don't love it. Maybe it's like you prefer a different cloud, but at least all of you in this one group will be in one environment, and we can build that application. And this other group that's maybe not as related to you is, they're going to use a different one. So you can at least find a path to like specialization to have some possible success. Well, I don't know.
And you could sugarcoat it, right? You can say, oh, we're using the best of each platform, so we're going to get, our Oracle SaaS is from Oracle. We're going to get, big data processing from Google. We'll get our AI from Amazon, whatever. And so you'll say like, oh, try to polish this turd and say like, oh, we're nothing but the best of the best from each, but it's going to be a pain. It's more bureaucracy for a huge bureaucracy.
Now you two pay a lot closer attention to this at the technical level than I do, and as far the level of usage. And I feel like let's as they say, step back a little bit and let's ask a broader question. Is there really any reason, other than like there's always reasons, but is there like a reason why the default case shouldn't be pick one cloud? Like, does it actually make sense? Like, because my intuition is that you should just pick one cloud. That should be pretty much what you should do, unless like you come up with a compelling reason not to. And like, it's like any sort of like IT stack selection, is that you may get local optimization with any given component, but if you look at the system as a whole, you're just going to have problems if you have a bunch of different things, right? And so you compromise for perfection is the direction that you want to go in. And it seems like it just seemed like the other side of this is I feel like, let's say that this is the way as they would say, the private industry worked, where you would go through a POC to like, as a private company, like I don't know, let's say like toothpaste conglomerate, just to make up a company, like toothpaste and toothpick conglomerate. They have been going through a process to select a cloud, and then they select one cloud, and then the other vendors they were going to buy from like sue them. And then there's a year, and then they end up buying like, signing a contract with all 3 clouds. I figure like it feels like if you went to court over that, the judge would be like, no, right? like this doesn't make sense. And yet for some reason, like it's just like with the government, it can be like this can be the outcome that you have. Whereas it feels like a judge would be involved and say like, no, like this doesn't like this wouldn't make sense for GM or for like, British Telco or for like, I don't know, NTT doc whatever, or like anything.
Clearly more private, more sellers need to have lobbyists on the buyer's front. People who are like, oh, well, you might want to buy, our competitions, but let me take you out to golf and, you know, sponsor your pack and make sure you get reelected. That does, you know, it's a totally different world. It's got its own different corruption.
Now, Brandon did bring up a good point. Is we have very little details about the arrangement here.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It could be that like $8.5 billion goes to one of them, and then you just kind of like are you know you're buying like a few tiny things from the other folks involved. Who knows? Or
that was a good correction at the very bottom. It said the original version of this said each vendor got 9 billion.
Oh,
And that would have been, yeah. Now it's like it's a lot more palatable when you think about like, well, hopefully, you know, Amazon or, you know, one of the vendors is pulling 8.5 billion, and the others are getting like, you know, integration fees, you know, to support whatever.
Now to go back to this multi-cloud thing. Now I read a lot of the surveys, and you read what people have, and they all have multiple types of infrastructure, to generalize it even more, whatever it may be. Like that's just the state of affairs. But now, Brandon, you also look at this a lot. Like what is your sense for like, if you are doing the general strategy, again, there's always going to be exceptions, but like, are you going to advise people just like pick one cloud, or are you going to be like, you know what you should do is you should build out whatever cloud you want from all the components, whatever solution you need from the various components, or what's your default position?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you definitely usually want to start like, hey, can we do it simple? Let's start with one vendor. But I will say with the customers and clients I work with, it is pretty common for them to have usually two clouds. Like you go start talking to them, and like it's usually multiple departments though, right? They'll say, well, this app group is using Microsoft and this app group is AWS. And it's usually those two, right? And they will say, and so sometimes they are talking about consolidating, and sometimes there is some reason. And that, you know, this is the whole thing. Like I think in this case, we're rightfully picking on the government, but if you kind of probe inside a lot of these enterprise clients, like it's somewhat political too, right? There's not always like a good reason. Like, you know, Microsoft had a better relationship with this group and they ended up, you know, going that way, and vice versa with AWS. So that is pretty common. But then you also get into on the legacy side, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, just how applications are deployed. It's, you know, this is your world, Cote. It's like, you know, everyone has VMware, right? Everyone has that. And everyone wants to talk about, well, what are my choices? You know, there's the initial question like, well, do they want to try to migrate away from VMware? And some apps, maybe yes, maybe no, but there's always going to be, we need to run VMware. And then there's the decision point is like, okay, what are the options, right? And so this is where you've got, like with VMware, you can like run it anywhere, right? Like Amazon's got a deal. You can do it on Azure. You can do it in-house. You can do it. So when you start talking about that, that's pretty common. So I wouldn't, you know, it's pretty common to have like, and then you could throw OpenShift much smaller, right? But like if someone's committed to that, then there's a question there. It's like, okay, where should I run the OpenShift application? So there is a place around when you start getting into the apps, and maybe that's the easiest way to think about it. If the apps are a proxy for the business value, hopefully they are. That's a whole discussion to itself. But then there's a little bit of like, where's the best way for me to run this application? And most people want to start with minimal change, right? So that just, you know, even though, and this is where we all give the talk about, you're only going to realize the benefits of the cloud if you like re-architect them and, you know, you go cloud native, and like we've all given this digital transformation talk. And then at the end, they'll say like, that's great, Brandon. Now, if we need to do this by next month and I need to get, and I don't want anything to change, what would you do? And I'd say, okay,
well, and then you say, that is great. We should do it that way. It's going to make repatriation easier.
Right. And so there's always that. So I do think, you know, and coming to that, and that's why it's like when you dig into this, to be, you know, a very optimistic take on the Pentagon would be like, well, I would, if I was in charge, I'd be like, okay, everyone send me your applications. I'd be like, let's get the list of all the applications. The first group is like all the Oracle applications. Guess where we're going to run those? In Oracle. That's like, you know, step one. And then two would be, all right, who wants to stay on VMware and will not let VMware go under any circumstances? Then we'd be like, okay, now I'm going to start, give me all those applications. And I'd start to figure out like, okay, where does that want to go? And then I'd be like, who's in for going cloud native? Who actually listened to Cote talk and is actually really willing to decompose their applications and wants to do that? Like, okay, so then we're going to get that list, you know, so that would be a way to start to kind of grade this out and say, okay, well, this is where we think we should do that. And then, you know, and then I think then just some generalized preferences. So so I guess kind of summarize all that is like, it's not crazy that they have a couple of them. I think it's just crazy when you see all 4 and 9 billion next to it. It just feels like this is going to be the mess of all types of messes.
And so, I think this is a good exercise. Trying to go down the happy path, the optimistic path, right? Because this, I think, you're kind of raising the idea of what if we could get a buffet of cloud, right? And like what you can do as the users of this is you might call this a catalog, but you can go to the buffet and get whatever food you need, right? Like, are you doing some sort of high impact lifestyle? You might need a lot of protein, right? Or I don't know what else. You're gonna go on a long hike. You need some food that's not gonna rot. Don't get fish, right? Like figure out what is
fish hiking. Yeah.
So maybe, and now let's also add to that. Now I haven't read the details, so who knows? But we could speculate that this isn't just infrastructure. This could also be the type of cloud that we call software as a service, right? Now, I don't know about y'all's organization, but through a series of acquisitions, we have both, Microsoft Office 365. We also have the old Google suite of things. We probably have multiple types of instant messaging applications, on and on and on, right? And so you could think across not only one of the branches of the military, but there's 5 branches, right? Like all of the branches that they probably use all this SaaS stuff. They probably got some Oracle ERP stuff in there. Maybe there's probably even some Microsoft, what was their ERP thing? Dynamics or something. So if you throw that in there, and then you have the infrastructure, and then you have all these other things, pretty soon you're kind of like, it's only $9 billion? Like, I don't really see how this is like...
As a taxpayer, this feels great.
And so also, I mean, if you're, again, we have to see the details, which we will never see. I'm sure we could find some sort of 2,000 pages of PDF somewhere that we could pour through and do this. But I don't know, it could be the case that it's just like you consolidate a bunch of existing projects, and then you also have projections that we're going to be buying all this SaaS stuff and all this infrastructure. You add in another layer, as you were saying, Brandon, we're like, yeah, but really we just need to run VMs, which you can do across all of the clouds. And you have kind of like a minor percentage of net new, let's call them true cloud native applications that you probably are going to run on some single cloud, but you got all this other stuff that you need to worry about. And then really, it's kind of fine after that point. Like it makes sense.
No, you definitely could make it work. I think you're just missing out on the opportunity. Like you think of it, the flips, because the other counterfactual would be like, hey, everything runs on Amazon, where it's sort of like because I think the learning curve here is what probably the big thing is. Like, imagine if the entire organization, everyone learned, I'm just picking AWS, could be any of them, but like everyone's an expert in this. And then getting back to our discussion like we had last week was like, well, maybe you could have this event-based architecture. We're all on AWS. We're all admitting, events. The organization's so big. And there's like some real, if you will, it's not so much cost cutting. It's more about it's a reduced learning curve, and it's also more natural integration, right? Because the other thing that we didn't talk about here is that as I'm going through this app thing, I'm probably calling, Matt or somebody else in FinOps to also come in and say, okay, well, help me figure out, because the question all the people are going to want to know is like, well, is there a benefit? Like, do we use less of the 9 billion if we run, this workload on this specific cloud? And so that's where I've we have all 4 here, so we have to see if Matt's company supports pricing across all of these things, because that's a whole nother kind of thing we have to go figure out too.
Now, this is a good. Do you ever encounter this, Matt Ray? Where so if it's definitive that you're spending $9 billion, that implies that you don't get that you don't get the bursting capability of cloud, right? So at some point, the military is going to be like, oh, we're $1 over 9 billion. Shut it all down, right? So at some point, if you have a fixed amount of cloud that you're using, you sort of then what do you do if you go over that?
I love your optimization, your optimistic view of the world that a government project, let alone a defense project, won't have cost overruns. Uh-huh. I think 9 billion might be the floor on this project. No, that doesn't really happen. I think nobody. It's in nobody's interest to shut you down.
Especially the government.
Because as far as I know, I don't think any of the cloud vendors sell like mobile minutes or something. Like, when you spend your 900 minutes, your phone stops working. They're like, once you spent all your cloud dollars, it's we shut your account down. It's like, oh no, that is so that's not going to happen. I mean,
right.
First off, it's bad for business as the vendor and the buyer, right?
Yeah, just like all of a sudden the battleships just stop and they're just dead in the water.
That did happen once, but it wasn't because they didn't pay their cloud bill.
Yeah, it would be the best. I like to bring this up, like way back at Funds Express, Arlie Burns, like whenever the internet would go down back in the late 90s, he would be like, well, I guess it's time to go home. And it was just like it was kind of like a snow day back in Texas, where it's just like, oh, snowing, not going to school. And so like I think the internet, that is a nice effect of the dependency on the internet, is if it goes down, it's just like, well, free vacation, time to can't do anything.
Possibly do any other work without an internet connection.
So maybe that's the big goal here, is like if we after all this lawsuit stuff, we're going to apply this same tactic to all the other governments, the major governments in the world. And, we're going to give them a sweet deal, only $9 billion. But then they're clearly going to go over that, and they're going to hit the ceiling, and we'll just, cut off their DNS. And then we won't have any wars in the future, and peace will reign. And finally, DNS will have done something good for humanity. Well, speaking of DNS doing some good, I haven't caught up on this commentary, so I'm excited to hear about it. But it sounds like there's I don't know, this sentiment going on that it's now day 2 at Amazon. I don't know if they failed to meet analysts' expectations, that they were supposed to have, the expectation was they were supposed to have 3,010% growth quarter over quarter, and they only achieved 3,000 growth quarter over quarter. So now it's their downfall, or if something's happened. But what's the story here, Brandon? How did someone let the clock go past midnight here?
Yeah, how did this happen? Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think as we kind of recap the AWS reinvent ourselves, I think everyone kind of, I think the take was, the show was fine and all. The announcements were, probably what we expected, but nothing, kind of revolutionary. Nothing that was maybe, if you compare it to like 5 or 10 years ago, things have really, if you will, I think it would say sustaining innovations. And so I feel like, out of this, everyone kind of has this similar take, right? It's, I know Stephen O'Grady over at RedMonk, he wrote this thing called like a faster horse, which is sort of AWS's kind of transition from kind of taking big, bold chances to sort of, if you will, as the metaphor goes here, right? To sort of like implementing the features that their customers want, which I think they would say they always did, but they're not sort of like, looking for the next big thing. And then there's another article, Amazon's heroic phase is over, right? And that's more kind of about the broader company in general. And I think, the idea, and then of course, Andy Jassy, who's taken over as the Amazon CEO, he's promoted, 4 executives into, I guess, like the S team or their executive team there. So a couple of things, right? Obviously, you have the change at Amazon and AWS from this year. So both, Bezos, everyone stepped down. So you have 2 new CEOs running there. And then you've got, kind of looking forward, it does feel like you're seeing a lot more sustaining innovation out of Amazon. And I think, different versions of this article kind of write it a different way, but it's one of these things, it's somewhat inevitable, right? It's sort of the success is going to day 2, right? Success is getting to the point that you're very large. You've got a lot of things you want to do. Your customers are asking you for improvements to existing services. That's obviously going to take away from you doing other big things outside of AWS. I've been written a lot about that. There's a lot of cost cutting going on at AWS, specifically Alexa, I guess, is a business that isn't necessarily panning out very well. I guess it's spending a lot of money. So you're seeing kind of the natural kind of large enterprise behavior of like, let's cut costs for projects that don't work. Let's invest in specific features our clients want. And let's, if you will, just, not, I'm going to say be private equity, but let's really kind of manage our earnings. Let's become a profitable large company. And it does seem like, I have that same feeling kind of watching the keynotes and interacting with it. But again, like I said before, I think it's just one of these things. I guess it's like another metaphor for people. It's like maturing, right? Like whether you get a new puppy, eventually a puppy becomes a dog, right? There's just a lifestyle phase, right? Where it's just like at some point things get to a more mature stage. And I think that's collectively, that's what the industry is saying at about AWS. Now, I guess what will be interesting to see is, they have such a strong culture. I think it's 16 or 14 management principles, right? And it's always day one is, I don't know if that's exactly one of them, but it's close, right? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if the people at AWS believe that. I don't know, Matt. What do you think? What's your take?
I'm sure. I'm sure Amazon, the day one folks probably don't like being told that Amazon is now a dog.
True. Probably not a good metaphor.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a level of maturity that has been met, and but also to that fact, we've talked about like this is kind of become inevitable. Whenever we talk about potential disruptors to Amazon, I've always maintained like it's not going to happen because they're so large that anytime they see any inkling of competition that might co-opt them, they implement it themselves, right? They still have that going, right? So I haven't ever heard them say like, well, we're not going to do that. Like nobody at Amazon, well, somebody probably says we won't do that, but then eventually another team implements it, right? So I think, yes, they are becoming a more mature company. It probably is day two, but I don't think that means like they're on any sort of decline. They're a good dog.
Well, I think for AWS specifically, right? I think that's the thing. It's like they're going to clearly innovate in that area, but I think it is one of those things. I think it's Stephen O'Grady. It's like they're going to clearly implement the features and functions they kind of see. What is it they always say, Cote? Horizon 1, 2, and 3, right?
That's right.
I think Amazon is going to do as a Horizon 1 as strong as they've ever been, right? And I don't know, Cote, maybe you can give us the quick primer on Horizon 2 and Horizon 3. That's probably where they don't have as much flexibility as they've had in the past.
Yeah, well, so your three horizons are, I forget who came up with this. Some management consultants probably. I forget if it was Bain or BCG, but you have you got Horizon 1, which is this is a rough approximation. It's basically like your business in the next 12 months, which another way of putting it is your core business that makes you all the money and the profit. And then Horizon 2 is your business in the next like 2 to 3 years, like what it'll look like, the products you offer, like, the shape of your business, if you will. And Horizon 3 is like your ideas and your business and your products, like 3-4 years out or more. And the insight of the three horizon thing, and I guess I think Jeffrey Moore also covered this, but the insight of the three horizon thing is that the problem is that every company is good. Well, every company that survives is good at Horizon 1 because that's your current business. And then everyone is always interested in Horizon 3, right? That's you got the office of the CTO out there exploring the new things. You're talking with the VC community, see what fresh stuff is happening out there. But what people neglect to do, because it's kind of boring and often doesn't have high monetary payoff, is they don't pay attention to Horizon 2. And so that means that like once your current business, the way that you're operating like runs out, you're not prepared for it. Like you're prepared too far into the future for what's happening instead of just like the stuff that people want the next year, which I think is a good insight, right? Like it's kind of like goes in that same bucket of insights of like the innovator's dilemma or disruption theory, where it's like, hey, look, this is what's going to happen, right? Now, I think the thing that's confounding is that, to use that line that the guy who plays Tony Soprano said in that Oh Dark 30, movie in the elevator, he's like, we're all smart, right? Like everyone who's doing these things have read those books and knows what's in them. And yet it kind of still keeps happening, not over and over, but when it happens at a company that you screw up your three horizons planning, or you allow yourself to be like disrupted, us on the outside are like, could I, with your local library, you can check out books for free. And these ones probably you don't have to put on hold because they're not thrilling, right? But you could just read those. And we could even send you like the Get Abstract summary of them. And so I think like probably like if any company, especially like a company like AWS, I don't know about the rest of Amazon, but if they wanted to move to day 2, like all they have to really do is figure out how to either implement or absorb new ideas. And this is where like I don't know what the jokey number is, but they've demonstrated that if you're going to have like 8 to 15 different ways to run containers, they don't have a problem with absorbing all sorts of new features and ways of doing stuff, right? And if there's some sort of like feisty new open source based thing that comes along and threatens them, they're just like, no problem, let's implement it, right? Yeah. And so like as long as you have like, you can almost like, I wouldn't call it like preventing disruption, because you're not really preventing the business part of disruption. You're just like making your own toys. You just like, you don't even take someone's toys. You're just like, yeah, cool toy, I'll make my own, right? Like, like
we'll call it Amazon Basic.
Yeah. It's just like, you have GoBots. How about we have Transformers, right? Or like, so forth and so on. And so like, as long as and it's probably the case that funding, and this is what makes it a Horizon 2 thing a little bit, that like funding that anti-disruption absorption is probably super cheap, right? Like compared to everything else. And so you just have to have that on the priority list of like, we need to actually do it. And what I think what all of us have seen in large companies is the other thing that you have to do, and I don't know if this is part of their 37 principles, is it's not even that you have to take like new ideas seriously, is that you have to constantly listen to yourself. And when you hear yourself saying, oh, well, who's going to do that? Right? You've got to be like, oh, we should totally do that. Right? Like anytime as a technology company, you find yourself thinking that like, oh, that's not real, no one uses that, like it's a total toy. That's when it's time to like spin up a team of 3 to 4 people to duplicate it
and immediately start doing it.
And at their scale, they can afford to do that. But and the pathology here is if you don't become a day 2 company, you become Google, right? You launch a bunch of stuff that doesn't follow through, and you have to have that maturity of like, we're in this for the long haul.
That is an issue, and so like that's an interesting angle on what I was going over there. Is then you also need the ability to kill off things that didn't catch on, right? And like maybe I would almost suspect that like the issue with Google doing that is oftentimes the things they kill off don't have revenue associated with them. So you don't have the feedback of like the money that you're making or usage that you would have. Whereas if you are charging for something, you probably have a lot more data about if you should kill something off or not. Now, I think another model for doing it is maybe you're only just now experiencing this, Matt Ray, since you've in recent years you use Apple devices. But as Brandon and I know, like Apple has a very funny version of this where they are always about 3 to 4 years late to like absorbing a new idea. And they are extremely hit or miss about their dedication to it. So like they might just decide that like, oh yeah, this is cool, we'll do that. And let's get some of the people like after lunch to implement that app, and then do nothing for 5 years. And so like that's a whole other sort of realm of doing things where like, but in the case of Apple, I mean, they just literally make so much money that like whatever. Right?
Well, so like does Amazon, right?
Right.
They all do.
Yeah, but it is like those are like different types of businesses, because one of them, like Apple, is like a fixed menu, and Amazon is like a buffet, like a Las Vegas buffet, right? Like their responsibility is just like, we do everything, whereas Apple is like, no, we don't. Like we only do like 5 things or however many it is, right? And so like Apple, that kind of strategy, you can put all of your energy behind like a very small portfolio. Whereas like the challenge that an AWS has is they have to, well, it's the everything store. So they have to be like the everything cloud. And so I imagine these are extremely different ways of operating strategically, right? Like it's a very like different situation.
And I think, I think to that end, though, it's a couple things on Amazon. It's like one, if watching the AWS keynote, and I think part of this whole discussion is around the cloud primitives, I think, have generally stabilized. Like you can kind of get storage, compute, networking, pretty much from all the vendors. So I think that's sort of like okay, where we are in the S curve. And so you clearly see Amazon, as we kind of recapped in the AWS show, was moving to solutions, right? They're coming up with these large industry solutions. So I think that's clearly their response to like, we are listening to customers. Yeah, this is what we're doing. But that's the whole Steve O'Grady faster horse kind of conversation. Now, the real hard part though is like when people, it's not just that they find things, but when they find something that sort of goes against the Amazon model, right? And that would be something along the lines of like an opinionated, simple way to do it. And this is and someone coming out with a message of like, you should only be doing it this way, right? Because if that got traction, that would be hard for Amazon to, sort of like they're the everything store. So it'd be hard for them to retreat and be like, yeah, actually, you don't need all this stuff, all these primitives, all these other things. There's actually a much simpler way, right? That would be something I think they'd be slowed to actually take up on. And the other thing on the Apple example, I think is interesting because it kind of comes back to conviction, right? Around like, when do you give up? So it looks like, people are giving up on Alexa, right? And it's like, well, is now the time to give up or is it time to push through? Like Apple sort of like, did payments and everybody sort of said Apple Pay is not going to work, but now they've stayed at it for all this time. It's like,
that's
actually,
true. Yeah.
It's used everywhere. Apple Watch came out as like a fashion device that once cost $10,000 and they did cancel that $10,000 Apple Watch, but they figured out like, oh, actually, you know what it is? It's a fitness device and we're going to tweak it. Now it's a pretty successful business inside of it. So, it seems like these are the hard questions, right? Where it's like, okay, are all voice assistants, bad? I think it's interesting with all this chat GPT stuff that's come out. It's like, is it bad or is it just about to get really good? You know what I mean? It's just like, where's the inflection point? And so if you're Andy Jassy and you're talking about machine learning, right? And there, or if you're Slepsky and you're like, hey, everyone should be using our machine learning, but you're walking away from your voice assistant at the same time, but you're telling me to go use the SageMaker UI for, this specific AI thing. It's like, well, maybe now's the time you need to show me how to do it. And, you actually have this voice assistant that's out there. So maybe you need to double down on it. Like, I don't have a strong opinion, right?
Right.
But I just think that's a hard decision.
I think you raise another like, well, first of all, who knows what the people doing this thinking actually think, right? Like until they talk about it. But like, to use it as a armchair strategist, to enter our software defined talk armchair strategist corner, like you're bringing up Alexa versus Apple Pay. This introduces like another interesting strategic angle, right? So like, I think like nowadays we've all used Apple Pay and we're like, yes, this is the way life should be, right? Like it's just like, and I'm sure it's probably the same on Android or whatever, but just like holding my phone up in front of a thing and paying based on my biometric, like, authentication, awesome, right? Like how did we survive until then, right? And as we talk about a lot in this show, I think that the reason it took Apple Pay so long is not that the technology was bad, but if you think about your classic Michael Porter strategy, there's 5 forces in that strategy. And one of them is like the supplier's partners, right? And what that means is that even if your product is really good, if your suppliers are not working well and they're too expensive or whatever, or they can't deliver, that's going to damage your product. And then also if your partners that you rely on to basically get to market are non-existent or hostile, your product is also not going to get to market. And so I don't know what happened, but it took a long time, especially in the States, before like just the terminals there were to pay for, right? And probably for MasterCard, I think the word they use is rails, but for MasterCard to put the rails in place globally so that you could actually use Apple Pay, right? So the technology was fine. It just took a long time for the partners, for the ecosystem to catch up. And so like, if you thought that inside of Apple and you also had near infinite money, you would just be like, yeah, that's cool. We'll just wait, right? Like, and then once this window finally opens, boom, just like they did with actual iPhones. When you look at that Horace Dediu diagram of like iPhones in the course of 3 years in 2007, like tanking the Wintel market share, just instant, like in 3 years is kind of instantly for the scheme of things, just very quickly. You can just be like, yeah, once the MasterCard opens up the rails, we're there, right? Like we'll take over all this stuff. Now, in contrast, with Alexa, there are no go-to-market channel blockers. Like it's direct to the consumer. The telcos don't block the internet that goes to it. Like they have everything possible. They're in full control of getting that technology to the end user, right? And then what happened is either one of two things happened. Like one, the technology, the product wasn't that good and it didn't become good, right? Or two, I think the other thing, like more of what happened, and this is like what a lot of the Alexa potshot postmortem, it's not even dead yet, but like articles have been recently, is just like, yeah, people pretty much just asked to play music and set timers. And so it's sort of like this product, like it was a combination of like not be delivering on expectations and also like people never needed it. Like,
I mean, that's the moment, like you can flip that conversation around because I think this is the difference between the day one versus day two, or the sustaining versus innovation kind of thing. It's like, okay, all right, yeah, no one did anything. Now, like whose problem is that? The way it's presented is like the users only ask for time, weather, and to play music, right? And you can say, well, therefore they're showing us, like you'll have tons of data to show that that's 90% of their inquiries and that's all anything happens. But the inverse of that is like, we have not given people enough, questions. We haven't given them the capabilities to do stuff, right? And if we don't provide better interfaces or better things, why would we expect them to do anything? And now's the moment, right? If you're doing your investment planning, is like, do you believe, like, are you taking up that challenge to be like, yeah, no, we have ideas, right? And we think we can get it better. And we want, this is back to the Apple thing. It's like, now that we have everyone has these in their homes, we have to double down and make the interactions better and show them. Or do we give up and say, and maybe not to pick on Apple or not to just pick on Amazon, like Apple gave up on like, I think their social network, right? They had some social network a long time ago and they were just like, that's not working. Or do they close it down? So like, these are those moments, right? And I think that's like a real interesting question going forward. It's like, well, like the previous AWS would maybe double down and keep going. And maybe the day two AWS is like, hey, we have a lot to do and we have a lot and we need to make more money. Go ahead, Matt.
And this is probably how Google is approaching things. So like, we launched this thing, we had no idea how we were going to make money with it. We gave away this free service that everyone loves. We didn't really think through the monetization, and that's how I feel about Alexa. Was like, what was the monetization strategy here to invest tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in this AI thing that everyone put in their home? Did they think they were going to sell devices? How are they making their money off this? That maybe that's why like Amazon Web Services doesn't have that problem. They're like, we launched this thing, we have customers, we know how much it means, we can taper off investment in it, but keep it sustaining because we know it has a usage base. Whereas Alexa's like, we pumped hundreds of millions of dollars of R&D into it. We really didn't know how we were going to make money with it.
Well, I think they did. I mean, everything I've read, I think they've had some ideas that like, hey, this would be a way for people to shop more and order even more through it. But I think that is definitely not shown. But also sometimes I just think it's like, this sounds going to sound worse than it is. But it's like, cause does anyone at Amazon just use Alexa all the time? And it's like, once you use it for a while, it's like, yeah, the reason you only ask for weather, time, and play music is like the miss rate is so high on anything outside of that, right? That of course, like, at some point you give up, like you just stop asking, things because you get back either a wrong answer, it doesn't understand you, or things like that. So it's like, they could easily have their own metric to be like, well, listen, not until we can put this in some test homes and it's like, for example, 99%, responding correctly, do we do more with it, right? Because there may need to be some threshold out there. I think there's lots of stuff you could do that, or flip it around and be like, kind of like the Apple side of it. I think the thing that all of these things miss, and sort of Sonos has figured out, is like, what people really like is high fidelity music all around their house, right? And like Sonos is like, when you get it working, I was at somebody's house and it's like, kind of like, don't have to fight all of like home theater stuff, and it just kind of works when you get it work. And it's like, whoa, maybe the use case isn't so much ordering things to send me. It's like, hey, play this music better, right? Replace all of surround sound. So I think there's lots of other stuff you could do with it, but like whether or not they want to, if they do their, what is it we call them, the OP1, OP2 planning sessions, like a lot of these questions are not going to have answers. You're not going to have financial models to prove it out. It's just like, do you want to make that bet? And maybe a day one company says we're going to make the bet. A day two company finds out reasons that we're not making that bet, and we're going to reinvest that in, another version of Kubernetes.
Yeah, it seems like maybe there's also like, despite what I was saying earlier, like maybe there is like a partnership problem in that, like, something that would be nice with is this true? Like with the voice assistant would be to say like, I need to order groceries, so email me a list of things I should order, right? And like, that would require integrating with like your refrigerator and your IKEA pantry and like all these different systems outside of like whoever manufactured your voice thing. And that kind of thing would be interesting and useful to use. But then you also into the problem of like, yeah, but how's Amazon going to make money off of that, right? Like it's not really like those, and this is where maybe like the benefit of having metered things like AWS comes into play is like, it's not that it's all about, but paying for it is a major component of cloud, right? Like there is no free public cloud, unless it's a trial thing. It's always associated with paying for something versus like these other things. If you're not from day one, so to speak, tied into how you're going to make money, like it's basically you're going to end up doing advertising. It seems to be like, if you don't know how you're going to make money, that's what the answer is going to be, advertising. But, it's just a weird, like, I mean, even with the, I'm not sure. This, it'll be odd. It'll also be funny if in like 2 years, like speech recognition stuff is so good that it would have worked. But then what? I don't know.
But that's going to be, I think that's almost predictable. Like, I don't know if it's 2 years, but like, it's very predictable. And like, I think, we see it more with this AI. Like, I don't know exactly when the tipping point is, but like, it's clearly getting better and better. Right. And there'll be this moment of like, yeah, when I ask the voice assistant a question, it's right, 99.9% of the time. And like, I don't even think about the fact that it's incorrect. And so, that's why I just think it's like, well, like who has the staying power, right? Who's going to hang, who's willing to just ride that out? Or maybe what I just said is it's 10 years away and it'll just be a whole new, like everyone will give up on this, right? We'll just, give up. It'll sit around for 10 years and then it will suddenly kind of jump on us and be like, oh, turns out it's gotten a lot better. And we'll just use whatever our mobile devices, our VR headsets, or whatever the modality of choice is then. But I think that's kind of come back to this larger conversation is like, well, I don't know, like, I think this is like, I think it comes across as a negative thing. It's like perfectly reasonable strategy to me is to, hey, go chase as much of this cloud revenue as possible. I think, you have hundreds of $billions ahead of you. It would be totally reasonable. And same thing with retailing, right? Totally reasonable to be focused on these two markets for the next 10 years. And you will probably make an extraordinary amount of money. That's a completely reasonable way to do it. And that would be a lot of sustaining innovations. That would be day two. And maybe the company doesn't like that term, but it would probably be extremely profitable.
Yeah, and to do like this is the worst kind of strategic analysis is like based on your individual usage, but like the major reason I don't really use much Alexa stuff is just like it doesn't like work with Apple stuff. It's just like anytime I want to do an Alexa thing, I've got to load up this totally weird Alexa application and go into its like view of reality, like and it doesn't like integrate with anything. Like I mean, there's a few simple use cases. One would be I don't know, it should just work with screen time. And like, that may seem like a technical impossibility, but it's just like, yeah, just like have some meetings and like make it work. Right. like in the same way that when you open up Safari, it searches Google by default. It's just like, yeah, do that. Like whatever. Right. And so like, whereas if I want to control my kids' Alexa time, I mean, it's not a nightmare, but it's totally bizarre. Like, I'm sure you've done this, Brandon, to like go into the way that you manage your kids' screen time in Amazon devices is funky, right? Like it's weird. And like, it should just integrate with other stuff. And then like Alexa doesn't work with like all the HomeKit stuff, because they're in that other weird parallel dimension of like, home management things. So that doesn't work, and on and on and on, right? Like it's all these things don't really work together. And so it seems like in, the as you were saying, like I think AWS is, there's a thing from whatever, that famous VC, that all businesses are either bundling or unbundling, right? And like AWS is an unbundled business, like a bunch of components that you build together. And Alexa always feels like a very like opinionated, closed platform that's hard to like get involved in and do something with. And so you're just left with like, I don't know, the weird stuff. But again, that's from a market of one person. Who knows the experience that other people
Sample
have.
size of one, baby.
Yes. N equals me, I think is what that analysis is. Well, now here's another thing you can educate me on. It looks like there's some rumors of Nutanix being acquired. Now, I'm not a big, that's some sort of storage thing, right? What is a Nutanix? I'm always hearing about that, and I always get confused about what it is.
Well, they're kind of a VMware alternative. Maybe that's why you don't hear about them.
So it's like full-on virtualization?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Which, the rumors were out, and supposedly it was kind of like, they had I don't know, 10, 15 years to watch VMware succeed. And, so they came in with a slightly better horse, and, they do fairly well for themselves. And, the rumors have been around that they are an acquisition target, that they were, shopping themselves around. And the latest rumor is that HPE is interested in potentially acquiring them. I'm not, my first reaction is I'm skeptical. HPE makes a lot of money on VMware. They're selling hardware and services, and I'm sure you've run across them in your day job, but it just seems, unless HPE thinks, we got to go off on our own way. But I wasn't sure that was a great fit. But I don't know. Brandon?
Yeah, I think I'm super interested, just because I just think of this as sort of at the business level. It's like, where are the workloads? Okay, the workloads are in VMware, right? OpenShift, and then Nutanix has got some as well. So because that is the raw material, right? That is the future revenue. Where do all of these workloads run now, and where are they going to run in the future? So if you just look at it like, hey, I'm willing to buy in bulk a whole bunch of workloads that I want to have customer relationships with, and I want to help customers to decide to do in the future, that is always going to be attractive. Now, whether or not HPE should buy it or someone else should buy it, it makes a lot of sense to me with, the VMware acquisition, although I guess it's sort of, going to get a little bit more regulatory scrutiny, but I don't think ultimately anything will change there. It just makes sense to me. It's like, okay, everyone's looking around and saying, like, if I want to buy this raw material workloads, now's the time, because either you buy now or you're going to have to go get it yourself. You're going to have to convince people to shift off of these other platforms. So, and I think this is maybe I don't know if it's the last one, but this is probably the last big jewel of workloads. It's certainly not as big as VMware, right? But it's sort of like the last big one that you can go out and be like, yep, if we get this, we've got a whole bunch of people that are going to be real close to us. So it would not surprise me. I don't know if it will be HPE exactly, but it wouldn't surprise me once VMware gets the go ahead to sell itself, that Nutanix, is right behind it somewhere.
Well, there you go. Shows you that I don't follow the market closely, even in the same one my company's in. That's great.
Well, that's kind of the outsider perspective, is that everyone is always obsessed with their competition, and it's like, no, you're success with you're thinking about the business in front of you, not.
Well, I think it's fair. I don't know, Matt, if you agree with me, Cote, you may not want to comment on this, but it's just like, there's VMware, right? And like, it's just the amount of workloads inside VMware. It's just so enormous. It's such a, it's like the sun, right? It's just sort of like, it sort of, if you will, just blocks out everything else. It's just like, yeah, there are other things out there. Nutanix is, I'm not saying it's a bad
like
company,
Jupyter.
but it's just a lot. It's significantly smaller. So it just, that it is what it is, as they say.
Well, do we have any bureaucracy this episode, Brandon?
Not a ton of bureaucracy. I just would like to invite everyone, if you'd like a sticker maybe if you get it in real soon, maybe you can have it in time for Christmas. Some stocking stuffers for people. What you should do is send me an email to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Include your postal address, and I will be happy to send you stickers anywhere in the world. And we were talking in the pre-show. If you haven't already, a lot of people don't know that we're just behind Mr. Beast on YouTube. Just a few subscribers and views away from overtaking him. If you've never watched the YouTube channel and you want to see behind the scenes, so sometimes people are interested in like exactly how do they record this. I don't know if anyone's really interested, although I think we do get some comments that people want to see it. Go watch the YouTube. You can see the live stream of all of this, see all the behind the scenes stuff. Something to run in the background, right? Instead of watching Mr. Beast, you can watch us talk. So check out the YouTube.
Oh yeah, I think that audience really. That's totally what people should be doing. Just run us in the background.
There you go. We'll get to those 10,000 hours.
Yeah, and then we'll be experts, right? Isn't that how that works?
How it works.
Yeah. Well, there's several conferences going on. I want to mention that at the end of the near end of January, we have the Spring One conference, which is going to be online, so it's free to attend. So you don't even need to use the discount code, but you should check it out if you go to spring1.io. I've worked with several people on what we're doing there. All sorts of great content, especially if you do Java development and Spring development, but also if you just do development and are interested in Kubernetes things and platform engineering and developer productivity. There's all sorts of good stuff to check out there if you go to spring1.io. There's also that conference coming up January 15th to 18th, right after I'll be there. Tragic. And then the State of OpenCon in London, February 7th to 8th, and Cloud Native Security Con North America in Seattle, February 1st to 2nd, and DevOps Days Birmingham, Alabama in April. I submitted some talks to all sorts of conferences, so there's many more out there, and hopefully I'll get accepted to some. That would be professionally depressing if I didn't. I'll have to see what happens. I was noticing that configuration management camp is kind of the first week of February. I need to go register to go to that just down in Ghent or Ghent or however you want to say it. The Belgians are a little softer in how they say their G's, but that's always a fun conference to go to. I went to the last one they had in person. It's nice. It's got good topics and hallway tracks. Like I think I spent 3 hours talking with our friend John Willis, which he's always good to catch up with at a conference.
Yeah.
So you can check that out. Well, Brandon, what do you have to recommend this episode?
Well, this week I want to recommend Wednesday. It's on Netflix. It seems like you probably, if you're a family, if you have kids, you've probably already seen it. But Wednesday, it's sort of a spinoff of the Addams Family. And I think it's really well done. I was, a lot of this times we watch stuff as a family. In fact, I would say it's hard at times to find shows to watch as a family that everyone is equally into, or maybe I'm just revealing myself. Oftentimes, like I'm watching but not watching. I'm watching my phone instead of watching the show that everyone else is watching. But this one I really liked. It reminded me, directed by Tim Burton. So if you like Tim Burton and like the way he does stuff, and I think the actress does a great job in it, and I know it's really popular, in social media. So if you're looking for someone watching with the family, or I don't know, if you just like Tim Burton and you like these shows, check out Wednesday on Netflix. And I will also, for those that heard at the very beginning, I'll also include a link here. If you have children and they have AirPods, here's the link to the AirPod case that has the AirTag holder in it, so you can maybe not lose your AirPods when your kids fly and go see the family.
Now, I checked that out. What's the lid control? Is the lid going to pop open? What's going on with that?
No, I don't think. I think the lid will be just like it is, just like it's normal. I don't know, has that, like, when you close it, it has that like little sound, that little like whoosh.
Yeah, and I guess you have double security because the lid is magnetically closed. And I feel like the actual, what do you even call them? Headphones? They're also kind of like stick in there magnetically.
Yeah, the little buds, right? The bud, the earbud, or I guess, yeah. No, I think it'll be good. I think you'll have the triple. You'll be triple secured, so it'd be hard for them to lose it.
Yeah, we've been watching that Wednesday show. I think it's pretty good. It's almost like mild Tim Burton. It's not like over the top crazy. There's just a little.
What was the show? Edward Scissorhands. Like it kind of.
Oh sure.
I mean, it's different. I mean, it's obviously not the same, but like I don't It reminded me a little bit of Edward Scissorhands. I don't know if that's totally.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
been a while since I've seen it, but kind of that
it has some
genre.
It has some echoes of the Tim Burton fascination with suburbia, which you also see in like Beetlejuice a
Yes,
little bit.
good. That's true too. It is. It's like another way for him to explore that. That's good. Good. I like it. Yeah.
I'll check it out.
I have a liberal arts degree, so. How about yourself, Matt Ray? What do you have to recommend?
Well, we are watching shows as a family, but most of our stuff right now is dominated by the Christmas staples. So we watched Elf again. We watched Christmas Story again. We watched that Spirited movie. I did not like that one, but that my pick is go do those things. But I do want to give I guess an RIP to Mike Leach. He's a coach for college football coach for Mississippi State. Most people probably don't care, but take a chance to read through some of the anecdotes around him, because he was definitely one of the most entertaining characters in professional and sports for the last 20 years at least. So he will be missed.
And I was just gonna tag on to that one. It's, if you really are interested in it, read the autobiography "Swing Your Sword." It's actually really fun. It's a fun read if you like football, or if you just like interesting, crazy stories about coaches. So check that out.
He was a crazy character.
Well, you've brought a third recommendation to bring in, Matt Ray, and that is and you as well, Brandon. I think our Christmas tradition around here is the Curious George : A Very Monkey Christmas Movie, which we watch almost once a day every time it's Christmas, because it's I enjoy it. I don't know if you've seen the Halloween movie that features the character No Noggin, but that one is also great. It might be a little young for your family, being Curious George, but it's just delightful. The world of Curious George, totally stress-free.
Well, the first movie I took my oldest to was the Curious George movie, which would have been, I don't know, like 2006.
Was that the spring one? The spring one's pretty good too.
I don't remember, man. But not the shortest movie I've ever been to. I think we left after about 5 minutes. He was like, nope. There was an opening scene where the monkey's playing in traffic. We had to leave. Only to be met by some IMAX movie about fish, where the opening scene, there's a little fish going across the screen and 90 feet across, and a larger fish came and ate it. We left. So I have yet to. Those are my two shortest movie recommendations.
That's nice.
It's some IMAX movie about fish. I didn't get past the opening credits, and Curious George 5 minutes.
Very compassionate about animals in danger. That's nice.
Yes,
well, my other two recommendations are, I probably recommended this before, but if you have a sore throat, Fisherman's Friend are great, which I should have had during this episode, but I don't. But I actually went to go get the URL for show notes, and their Netherlands site has you verify that you're 13 years or older. So this has got me intrigued that maybe Fisherman's Friend has some method you can get fucked up on that I don't know about. So I should.
We're gonna have a NyQuil Fisherman Friends bender for the weekend.
And then also I recently moved my newsletter, because I like to move my infrastructure every 6 to 12 months. I moved it to Substack. And I have to say, as a reader, I find Substack nice, but as a newsletter publisher, it's fantastic. Like, it really is like, there's all these like little independent newsletter things, and I've used all of them, and they're fine. But you go use a Substack, and you're like, wow, they're doing stuff, right? It really is like, it's kind of like, I would say Substack is like the Fireside.fm of newsletters. It just has like whatever feature as a producer of podcasts you think needs to exist, it's in there, right? And it's great. I really enjoy it. So, when you're done looking at the show notes for this episode at softwaredefinedtalk.com, all sorts of things we mentioned, things we didn't, you should go. You can go check out how great my newsletter is on Substack. It's at newsletter.cote.io, and it's fun. You can put all sorts of stuff in there, and it looks really nice, quite enjoyable. But you can also join the Slack and talk about, stuff related to our show. Help us find things to go over in each episode. And there's also all sorts of lively, fun conversations over there. And if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com, you can find the link to Slack. And as long as Brandon renews it every 6 months or whatever, you can invite yourself to it and have that conversation there. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
All right, good show as always. Looks like we even have some YouTube. I don't know, Matt. Did you try to join again, like the stream? Like I didn't. It came up with you trying to like get into restream again, but I didn't activate you. Did you do that on purpose?
Matt Ray is
I
activated.
had to add a second camera. There's like
yeah.
it was
Okay,
like,
I didn't
hey,
turn it
would you like
on. It did work because I wasn't.
That's fine.
It'll mess up. Well, I don't know. So you did that on purpose. You
Well,
wanted the second camera.
that's the only thing that I did with Restream. Like there was like this blue button that said new,
Okay,
and I
dude.
clicked
See,
on
I'm
it.
not gonna turn these on because I want.
Come on.
It's gonna add different. It'll give me.
Come on,
different
do
audio
it for the
tracks.
streamers. Do the
No,
second
no,
camera.
no,
We do it
no.
now.
Oh,
Can't
come
do it now.
on.
'Cause it's gonna mess
I'm in the
up.
green room.
It'll mess up the whole.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
this
this
age
is
now.
okay. All right.
I don't want to like. I don't know. I'll try it later. I want to try it without audio that I want later. So.
Well, this is your chance.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
No, because when I download it, it creates a stream. It'll create like a separate check for everything that's in here. So I don't want to see 5. Because then
All
I have
right,
to
that's
get them all
fine.
in.
I'm gonna stop trying to share this. Whatever.
Okay,
Oh,
done. And then it looks like it's good. I think we have some people. So CRB, I don't know who CRB is, but yes, we do have faces, and I appreciate you joining on YouTube. One thing I want to do, Cote, can you log into this? Like, since we're doing it, can you actually log into the YouTube and moderate a comment or something?
Did you sent? I think
did.
you
I
sent
sent
me
you
an
the link.
invite. So let me go
Yeah.
look at my email.
And then for everyone watching here, it does. Brian tells us Curious George is available on Hulu. So there you go. If you want to watch it,
Well, maybe my 19-year-old can handle it now.
Yeah, I just bought it, but whatever.
Brian, I don't think I've gotten the Twitch recap. I don't know. Is that like a Spotify thing where it like tells you like how many things you watched this year or something? I don't know what that is. I haven't seen anything like that. Or I didn't get it. Did you get a recap, Matt or Cote?
It was probably
ours?
filtered somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
Invitation.
All right, we'll have to
to
see.
extra
Didn't get the recap. We'll see if we get one. I'll have to post it.
I've started only broadcasting my live stuff on YouTube. I think that's
What?
I just
Well,
I don't know.
We're pretty mixed. We're basically 100.
Oh no, I think this one is fine. I just think like I don't know what I think anymore. Switch channels. Let's do it. All set. How did I get there? You're a manager. Let me do the full thing here.
Yep.
Switch account. Oh yeah, I can get to it. Yep.
Okay, can you see? Like, how do you? Maybe you can tell me. How do you get to the comments? Then, like, how do you like in Switch?
All right,
like, I can see
you've
the
got to go
comments.
to the what do they call it? The the studio.
What is it? Studio.
I don't want to go
Switch
live.
account.
Let's see. Start right now. No. How do I?
They have
get
this nice
in?
thing in Twitch, Stream Manager, which is like perfect. You're like, yeah, that's what. Is there a Stream Manager for YouTube, or where is it? It must exist in here somewhere.
When do you want to go live? Later date. Built-in webcam. Oh, for fuck's sake. See, I can see the stream we're currently doing,
Yep.
but
So
how do
can
I? How do
click
I
to go
get-
deep? Find the video details only. I don't know. I want to like.
How do I get to it? Because it
wanna
wants me
moderate
to
it.
like. It wants me to set up.
details? Edit.
Oh.
Oh, okay. No, here it's view and live control room. Okay. All right.
How do you get to that? How do you get to that?
You got to go to the list. Go to the list of streams. You'll see it, and then okay,
List-
yeah, it does
list of
work.
streams.
Yeah,
Oh,
so when
right.
you're in the studio, it's like live. I guess there's videos.
Right,
There's the
right,
second
right,
tab,
okay.
and then from there, there's a little, just a very small icon.
And
see if it
and
works
then
here.
that to do that, so then I actually go to the link. In theory, that will allow me to moderate when I look at ourselves here.
So now we can actually. Okay, so I got it now. Report room. Okay, all right, good. This has been a good.
All right. Well, you have to show me how you got there. 'Cause
Stream
I
health,
don't have
yeah.
it figured out.
Oh, it looks like our current bit rate is only 697 kps. So,
Oh my God.
oh well.
Oh,
Oh,
good
wow.
news for you, Brandon. T-Mobile set up as the guy was at pains to tell me, glass fiber to the house. That explains the 6 months of construction that's been going on. Although I have to say,
Is this your house
Be-
in the Netherlands? Like, where
yes,
is
yes.
this? Okay,
Not my estate elsewhere. But there is an advantage of having cobblestone sidewalks, is that when you want to like tear up the sidewalks to put stuff in, and the streets are cobblestone, like you just like put the stones back. I mean, you got to go get the big industrial pounder thing to put it down, but like it's super easy to tear up the streets and put cable down versus
So what are you getting?
asphalt.
Like 10 gigs down, 10 gigs
Well,
up? kind of
so
thing?
what I'm getting from the T-Mobile company
Uh-huh.
now the catcher is, just like everything, I assume in the rest of Europe and the Netherlands, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to install instead of tomorrow
Okay.
or whatever.
That's
But
fine.
I'm getting like gigabit. I already have gigabit, but the
Yep.
reason I signed up for it is it's also gigabit upload. The guy
Yeah, be
promised.
great. Yeah.
So is that is this? I don't know C names versus A names, but I think that you would call that symmetrical.
Yes,
is that
symmetrical.
What that is?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, no,
hopefully-
over here in Austin, we're still. I don't know if Brian's gotten it, but like, yeah, we're still just time. Not Time Warner. It's what is it called? It's
Comcast.
so I don't know. Anyway, Spectrum, and it's just like, yeah, we're still on the cable modem stuff. It's like, yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, they've kicked it off. I mean, you can get 1 gig down, but I think you can only get like 20 megs up. So,
Yeah.
and then Matt's in Australia. Matt, you had like your connection like was like red, like in the, you see on the left hand side. Can you see the little bars, the green bars? Do you guys see that as well?
Well, you still have like a over there in Australia a modem with like a hand crank.
Yeah.
on it,
Do you
right?
have the sound that comes on? Ding ding, boom boom. Yeah, that's exactly
me.
right. That's right.
It's actually gotten better over the years, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, Kote, you definitely have the best internet. So don't, just know, should you
rub it
ever, I guess in Austin, like there are places you can get the fiber. You just have to check ahead of time. So, all right, streamers, appreciate Brian, CRB. Let's see here. I think Brett's going to be here for that conference not too long. So appreciate all of you watching. We'll be on Friday. This is coming Friday. We're going to have a little show. We're going to do a little end of year special. So if you want to hear the end of year before it comes out in a couple of weeks, you can watch the YouTube video. And until then, we will talk to you next time.